he has a reflection in here called Taking Off the Armor. So I'm reading from that this morning. We all have to protect ourselves, but the question is how? We all construct walls that we believe are castles, though they slowly turn into prisons, because we can't wall out pain and sorrow and loss. We often take our walls with us and think we're free, even though we're clunking around in a suit of armor that makes life burdensome. Armor, no matter how thin or clear, keeps the air from touching the skin. It keeps aliveness from touching the heart.
This morning's scripture is Luke 8:16. People never light a lamp only to put it under a basket or under a bed. They put it on a lampstand so that whoever comes in may see the light.
Would you pray? God, essence, help us to connect with our lights this morning, to look deeper, to be more self-aware, to grow in wisdom and in insight about ourselves, about others, and about you. May the words of my mouth, the meditations of each of our hearts be filled with grace and hope. Amen. The scripture seems kind of like a no-brainer. And it's short, sweet, and to the point. You know, this was back in the day where there was no light switch, no electricity. You get a light, and you light it because you want everybody to be able to see. Right? Okay. So you don't then put it under the bed and under a bushel, right? Okay, no brainer, we've all got that. Clearly that's not what Jesus was talking about. Clearly he was speaking metaphorically. We so often hear people say that, Jesus was the light of the world. But here it's all about us. It's about our light. So you are born with a unique, beautiful light, as bright as this flame. That's to come into the world and make this a better place, to share your talents, to share your love, to share the brightness of who you are, because you bring something to this world. No matter what you look like, no matter where you come from, no matter what religion you follow, no matter what ability or disability you have a light that is not going out like this candle. What happens when we put a basket over it or put it under the bed? Our own lights. We do this metaphorically. We hide our lights. We put our own lights out by putting up walls, by covering ourselves up with layers of armor or protection. So much so that maybe we don't even know what that light looks like anymore. Why? Why do we do that? Fear? Fear, hurt. The interesting thing is that if you're putting up a wall because you're afraid of something, the fear's already gotten in. You're not walling out the fear anymore. Now you're just walling the fear in. And the same thing with hurt. You're walling out the hurt because you've already got the hurt. So now you've walled in the hurt. Why else do we put up walls?
Insecurity.
What was that?
Insecurity.
Insecurity. Sure. Change. Which again are both based in fear. Selfishness. We don't want to share our light. We're taught to do it. What? You stifle yourself.
Conformity.
Sorry?
Like conforming.
Conforming.
You don't want to stand out.
Sure. You don't want to be judged. You don't want to be criticized. All of which, most of which stem in some sort of fear. But all of those are a protection. We're trying to protect ourselves and our vulnerability from being hurt again, from being judged again, from experiencing woundedness again. And so what are the walls that we put up? What's the armor that we put on? What does it look like?
Jokes.
Jokes, sure. There isn't maybe you remember this, when we did like the marriage thing, there was a continuum between, are you the serious one, are you the funny one, and you're supposed to put yourself on this continuum. And I have some couples that, they're like diametrically opposed. Some people can never be funny, they can never find a sense of humor, and some you can't ever get off it. You can't have a serious conversation with them ever. All right, somebody was saying, so we went somewhere else. Someone else said something, and now I forgot. Squirrel. What else? What else does our armor look like? Anger. Yep. I'm sorry. Rudeness? Sure. Beth?
You don't talk to people or try to be.
So you withdraw, you don't talk
to other people.
to other people. Yep.
Right.
You exclusions, you exclude others. Denial.
Indifference.
Denial's a beautiful place. Indifference.
It looks like someone who's attractive or rich or that isn't.
Right, so you put on airs, maybe. Mm-hmm. You cover it with fancy clothes and fancy cars and money.
Mm-hmm.
Violence. You could be that angry that you're acting out in violent ways. Addiction. The loss of that young man. Drugs are a great way to put up a wall and try and numb things, protect things. How about our roles? People who hide behind their roles as even as a parent or a child or a doctor or a pastor. I could never wear those robes and those darn clergy collars because it felt like, putting up a barrier and hiding behind something even more. Did get me a discount on Bryn's braces, but other than that, that's a story for another day. It was the one and only time I wore a collar. Anyways. You think I'd wear one more often, wouldn't you? The barriers that we put up, the aloofness, for people who are very aloof, for people who are arrogant, or there's so many. And it's easy to get into that, and then we start labeling, and we go, oh, I know what Mike's wall is. He's got that whole funny drummer guy thing going on, and we start to label people. But that's not what this is about. We can all look at ourselves, and we all wear different types of armor at different times. And so we're probably familiar with some of those types that we just talked about. And sometimes a layer of protection is important. But the question is, how do we look today? How do we look inside and see what our armor is? See what walls that we've put up. See what bushel basket we're hiding our light under. When did it start? What hurt does that go back to? What's the cost to yourself and the people around you for putting up those walls? And how do we start to take them down? I think some of us have probably had those walls up for so long that we don't even recognize that they're there anymore. Sometimes I don't wonder that other people can't see our walls better than we can see them ourselves. Sometimes I wonder if we should ask those people that we're closest to, if we really want to grow, you know, Julie, can you tell me what my walls are? And how that affects you? Because it does. To believe that it doesn't, that it just, protects me is wrong. It affects everybody that we're around. So I want you to do something for me for just a moment. If you got your bulletin or a cup in your hand or something, put something in your hand. Now, I just want you to hold that out for a second. Oh shoot, I want to say something else, so just leave that there for a second. You know, we are not born with the walls. Think of, when we look at Sutton, we've got Sutton, this beautiful little baby. Think about your own children, or think about your nieces and your nephews, that somebody that you've held since they were a baby. Their light wasn't inhibited. They loved and they gave freely, and they showed their light, and they danced and they laughed and they were curious and imaginative. You remember that? And then as those kids started to grow up, you watched them put layer after layer after layer on it, didn't you? And that gets hard to see people starting to layer themselves and to not laugh as much and not share as much and not be affectionate as much. Oh, it got really iffy to start hugging and kissing Aunt Mary because I got a little too old for that. We put up those walls over and over again. But we see them. You know, we know what their light's like. You know, Julie knows what your light is like. I mean, she's held you from when you were a baby. You know, you can put up all the walls you want, but she knows the beautiful soul that's in you. We're like that with our children. And that's how God is with us. God sees the beautiful, wonderful soul that's in us that we've covered up and layered up. And I know some of you are going, well, I like my walls. My walls are important. Sometimes I need to be protected. And yeah, okay, that's sometimes true. Sometimes we need to be cautious. But again, what's the cost? And when can we let our walls down? And I think there's some really good reasons to let our walls down. So I noticed some of you have given up on my little paper thing. Why is that?
I took my walls off.
You get tired. Yeah, okay, you can put them all down, yeah. Because that was the whole point. If it's that tiring to hold a piece of paper up for 3 minutes, how much more tiring is it to put on a persona and to keep that persona on and that mask on and that armor on? Do you know how heavy armor is? Sue and Kurt have a real, live knight in shining armor named George in their house. I tried to get her to bring George's head.
He's alive?
But George's head George has not lost his head in his lifetime, so it's staying on. But that's the first thing. To carry our armor gets exhausting and tiring, even if we don't recognize it anymore. Mark Nepo, in that reflection I read, said that even if our armor is thin and transparent, it still doesn't let the air get in. It doesn't let the air touch our skin and the aliveness touch our heart, is what he said. So are we really free? You know, if we think our armor is freeing us to not get hurt in life, hey, I can do anything because I've got this protective shield around me, is that really freedom? I don't think it is. There's this wonderful story about a man named Yitzhak. Yitzhak was liberated from the concentration camps in 1945. And he came to America. And he worked hard and he studied hard and he became a respected research physicist. When he got older, he got cancer. And after 2 years of fighting cancer, he went to the Commonweal Cancer Retreat Center in hopes that he could start to engage his mind and the power of his mind in battling the cancer that he was dealing with. Because his mind was really the one thing that he trusted of himself. It's the one thing that he trusted in his being. Continuing. Just let it be read. It'll last for a while. No, it's fine. No, I'll turn it so none of you can see the red on the microphone. Thank you for trying to take care of me. So, Yitzhak's in this retreat program. He's got a really strong Slavic accent. Okay? People, the staff at the retreat center are very touchy-feely kind of people, and so they like to hug, and they like to touch, and he is very stiff, and what is this huggy? What is this stuff? What is this love the stranger? What is this? But he let them hug him anyways, and eventually he started to hug them back. Part of this program, every morning, it's a week-long program, and there's meditation and yoga every morning. And about 4 days in, Yitzhak had a really profound experience for him. He was meditating, and he said suddenly he felt like there was this light pink, red-colored light that surrounded him, and felt like it was mysteriously coming out of his chest. He said he felt like he was sitting in the middle of a big rose, which is interesting because his last name in Polish meant little rose. He was sitting inside this big rose, but it was an uncomfortable, difficult feeling for him because he felt like it was this big hemorrhage, and he felt very, very vulnerable. So he had survived the concentration camps. But part of the way he survived life was to make sure that he protected his heart. That he didn't allow himself to open up and show love, really, to anybody but close family. So he was processing all of this, and the retreat staff, they don't give you answers, they don't try and fix things, they just help you to process and to ask the questions and to work through your struggles. As the week went on, though, he became more at ease, he became more open. On the last night, they had sort of a wrap-up, and the leader asked Yitzhak how he was doing. And he said better, and he explained that the day before he'd gone for a walk on the beach and had a little conversation in his head with God. And he received comfort in that conversation. And the leader asked him what God had said. And he kind of chuckled and he said, well, I asked God if it is okay to love strangers. And God said, Yitzhak, what is this strangers? You make strangers. I don't make strangers. In the process of all of that, he learned that healing was not only about healing his body, but healing his soul and healing his heart. And starting to take down some of those walls that allowed him to live fully. To uncover the light that shone in him, that he had covered up for so long. We all have our wounds, and we all have our hurts. We all have our fears. And it's much easier to wall them off and try and feel like we're protected, but then we wall ourselves in with them in this little tiny prison that we make. And the spiritual journey is not about locking ourselves in a suit of armor so that we don't get hurt. Our spiritual journey is taking the layers off and finding that light again, finding that authentic self again. It's about uncovering the layers and processing the pain. You've got to walk through it. You can't walk around it. You can't walk under it. You can't ignore it. You walk through all of it to get to a better place on the other side, and that's the spiritual journey. So I invite all of us to take a look at ourselves. In what ways do we hold people at arm's length because we think it protects us and makes us happier or better? When perhaps even our closest relationships suffer because of the armor and the walls that we put up. And how do we start to take them down? To trust a little bit more, to live a little more fully, to fall in love with ourselves, like Jan said. Because you are beautiful and you are light, and you should be put on a lampstand for everybody to see. Not hidden under the bed, or behind a wall, or behind some armor. Be light. Amen.